Hi everyone, this is Nicole Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing two rainbow die cut cards featuring brand new stamps and dies from the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero December 2020 add-ons release. So for one card we're going to be doing some inlay rainbow die cutting, and for the other one we're going to be inking a die cut with a rainbow of Hero Hues Reactive inks. So both cards feature a rainbow, just a little bit different way to get there. And we're going to be using 5 brand new products from the December release. We're going to start by just putting a little adhesive in our MISTI to hold our cardstock in place. This is a 4 by 5¼ inch panel of Hero Hues Pebble cardstock. I do this because I'm not going to put it in the corner of my MISTI so that I get a really good all over pattern with my stamping. We're using the Sun Pattern Bold Prints background. This is a new background for the December release. We're inking it up with Hero Hues Sea Salt Reactive ink and stamping it on the background for a very subtle sun pattern design. The reactive ink actually works really great. I don't think I've ever used it for a background before, and I love the results. So that looks really good. We're going to do that a couple of times for both backgrounds. Off camera, I die cut the Tree with Roots Fancy Die from Nina Heavyweight 110 pound smooth white cardstock. Then we're going to ink up the tree trunk and branches with Gathered Twigs Distress ink. I'm using a small blender brush so that I hopefully keep the ink mostly on the trunk and branches and it doesn't get too much on the leaves. I'm not looking for perfection here, just more kind of getting that color in place where I want it to go. I am going to grab a post-it note that I can then use to kind of tuck under and around the branches if I need to get closer to the tip of to the leaf without compromising it with a bunch of brown ink. A small blender brush works especially well for this. Just going to add all of that color. Plus, if you're not using a really, like you haven't just inked up your blender brush, that tends to work a little bit better as far as not getting too much ink on those leaves. We're going to use this post-it note throughout all of our ink blending. This was super quick and easy. I didn't do a ton of, this is a mask, but I didn't really do a ton of masking, and it really worked well for getting that color on as quick as possible. Another idea for coloring in this tree would be to color it with your favorite watercolors, markers, or any product like that. I could see creating some really fun effects with markers. Next, I'm taking an even smaller blending brush, and I really do suggest some sort of small brush or applicator tool for this. This is the really small circle to add color to our leaves. So what we're going to do is kind of create a rainbow bush type of, or tree kind of look, where I'm not actually inking kind of randomly haphazard, but it's going to go more of a rainbow type of order. So I used Hero Arts Taffy ink first, cleaned my blender brush on that microfiber cloth over on the left side of the screen, and then I'm going to move to Fruit Punch, which is more of the red color. So kind of a pink and then red. We're going to clean our blender brush again and move on to Creamsicle. I've mentioned this in videos, but it's been a little while, and it's been a little while since I've used the Hero Arts Reactive inks, but I absolutely love them. If you are a fan of bright inks for blending, I very much recommend the Reactive inks. They are amazing. They do react with water, so you can do some painting techniques and other kinds of fun effects with them, but they also blend beautifully. You can paint, or pardon me, add color to die cuts like I'm doing here. Just so many different things to do with them. I used Lemon Drop, Key Lime Fizz, and now Green Apple. And then we're going to finish off this side of the tree with probably my favorite reactive ink, Pool Party. And then we're going to work on the other half of the tree. And we're going to start that half with blue raspberry and move on to splash and blue Hawaii to finish out our blues before we add a couple of shades of purple. So I really used the whole array of colors. I wasn't sure about it when I started. With the first 2 to 3 colors, I thought, oh, maybe I should have done a whole random tree type assortment. Maybe that would have looked better. But as I got to this side, it finished out the first half of the tree and started on the second half, I very much loved the effect, and it really turned out super cool. You, of course, would not have to do a rainbow effect. You could color them all in shades of green if you're doing maybe a spring type of tree, or do reds and golds and oranges, rust colors for a fall themed tree. So there's lots of great things to do with this die cut. I really love it. It's probably my favorite die from the release this month. Now we're going to use thistle and grape slush to round out our rainbow assortment of inks. Once we have this, I'm going to set this aside for a minute while we work on the inlay of our other background, this time doing a rainbow inlay of cardstock instead of ink. Then we'll come back and put both cards together. So we have 2 backgrounds with that sun pattern bold print. Out of that second background, we're going to die cut the geometric sun fancy die. I'm going to line it up in the center and then die cut this. And it's going to die cut all of those little shapes from the background. And then we will be doing some inlay with some of my favorite Hero Arts and Simon Says stamp cardstocks. While this is a very simple design, when inlaying, it does take a little bit of work if you're going to use multiple colors of cardstock like I'm doing today, because there are a lot of areas to cover. I ended up doing a couple of repeating patterns so that I could really make use of all the different cardstock colors I'm die cutting this sun from. This particular technique would also work great if you wanted to create a bunch of cards. You could simply switch out the colors and use all of those leftover bits and pieces. The first cardstock color we're using is the Canary Ink from Hero Arts. That, of course, is going to go in the center of our geometric sun. Then we're going to move on to some shades of orange, red, and pinks with a little purple for the dotted design out there coming out from the sun. And then we'll finish with kind of those teardrop shapes using some blues and green. I'm going to save all the little bits and pieces because, as I mentioned, I can create some additional cards later. So I'm going to just tuck these all into a little dish that I use for small die cuts right there on my desk. There are a lot of little bitty parts and pieces, so I want to contain them all so I don't lose them. The next color we added in the largest circle coming out from the center is Hero Arts Papaya cardstock. Then we're moving on to Hero Arts Cherry cardstock. I'm trying to go as slow as possible so I don't miss any of those, and I'm using a Spellbinder's Tool-in-One as well as an embellishment wand to easily pick things up and pop them in place. Back behind my panel, which I've already adhered to a white top fold card base, I put down quite a bit of adhesive as it makes inlaying a lot easier. I'm not going to have to add liquid adhesive to every little part. There are some areas that I noticed don't have adhesive, and so I am adding a little liquid adhesive with the Ranger Multi-Matte Medium to those areas. I have a fine tip applicator on this so I can control the amount of glue and make sure that it's not a ton. That way it doesn't kind of come out and make a mess on my project. The dark pink color is Hero Arts Azalea cardstock. Then we'll move on to our light pink, which is my favorite light pink of all time. It's the Hero Arts Peony cardstock. I think it's kind of hard to find really great light pink cardstocks, and it is bar none my absolute favorite light pink. And the smaller the areas, the more I'm afraid that there might not be enough adhesive to hold it, so I am adding little dabs of glue. And then we're just going to work our way around. It almost looks like a flower. If you don't want to think of it as a sun, it could also be a really pretty flower. After I have my pink in place, we're going to move on to Hero Arts Lavender cardstock, which is a really soft purple. And that's going to be the very last little circle opening there going around, and then we can work on the teardrop shape. Looks like I have a couple more peony ones to put in place. I tried to work kind of slow, keeping as many of those shapes in the die as possible. I went ahead and did the lavender off camera, and I started on the teardrop shapes. The green is Hero Arts Kiwi. This really pretty aqua is Hero Arts Paradise cardstock. And then I'm going to finish with my all-time favorite royal blue, like true blue cardstock. It's not too light, it's not too dark. This is the Simon Says Stamp Island blue cardstock. And there is our rainbow geometric sun. Let's go ahead and put some liquid adhesive on the back of our tree now and adhere that tree with roots fancy die to our other background. I love how the sun pattern bold prints is not so overwhelming and doesn't take over the design, but yet adds some subtle interest to those backgrounds. I'm going to pop an acrylic block on top of this to help hold it flat while the liquid glue dries and while I stamp and emboss the sentiments for both cards. We're going to be using two different sentiments from two brand new stamp sets from the December My Monthly Hero add-on release. We're going to be using a sentiment from the Good Vibes stamp set and the You Shine stamp set. One is I made this to brighten up your day, and the other is Thanks for Being You. Both stamp sets have tons of amazing sentiments that work with all of the different release products here this month and beyond. I'm going to prep my Hero Arts Pitch Black cardstock with a powder tool and then ink this with an embossing and watermark ink, or stamp these with an embossing and watermark ink a couple of times before applying my Hero Arts white embossing powder and heat setting. Nothing fancy with these two sentiments today. I purposely put them both up at the top of my MISTI so that I could use my paper trimmer really quickly and easy to trim these down into rectangle shapes that I can then add to my cards. Often I will use a rectangle die, a square die, a circle die, or a strip die to trim these into strips, which you definitely can do if you want to. But this was much quicker and easier. Don't forget, once the embossing powder has cooled down, it's not hot right after you've embossed it, to buff away the remaining powder with a dry cloth or a Swiffer cloth or something like that. I like to use a microfiber cloth and buff away any of that remaining powder. I'm going to back both sentiments after I've trimmed them into a rectangle with some foam adhesive. I'll peel off the backing paper, and then for the sun, I'm going to place it right in the center of the design. I love how the black really pops with all of those beautiful bright bold colors. And then across the center of the tree on the Tree with Roots card. The final thing I'm going to do today is add some fun embellishments with these little funfetti hearts from Trinity Stamps. On the tree card, we'll just add a bright pink one right above the sentiment on the trunk of the tree. And then on the geometric sun card, we're going to place hearts all the way around the teardrop shapes going around the sun. I couldn't find just one specific area that I thought a heart would look great on, and I love the effect of adding these little dimensional hearts all the way around the design. I decided to go with a repeating pattern, much like I did with the teardrops, and for that matter, the little circles coming out from the center of the sun, and we're repeating blue, mint, and yellow. I'm using just a little dab of glue to glue these in place. That is going to finish up our 2 rainbow die cut cards featuring brand new Hero Arts December 2020 My Monthly Hero release products. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these 2 brand new cards. The supplies I used to create these cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring Hero Arts My Monthly Hero products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.